Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
We're back.
And if you're joining us right now, we're just getting our first conversation for this morning started. And we are joined by the Honorable Anthony Mahler, the Minister of Tourism and Diaspora Relations. And we're getting an update from the tourism industry as we head into the high season for this year. Good morning,
Good morning, guys, and thanks for having me. Good morning, Belize.
Thank you for joining us. We always appreciate you coming in to the show. And we can just start by just talking about how things are looking as we do head into the high season. As Marlene and I were talking about, we're reaching the tail end of the hurricane season, and this is traditionally the time when we're thinking for the pickup in tourist arrivals.
Well, it always picks up around Thanksgiving weekend, and then it goes into Christmas. There's a lull, and then there's a huge boom from January to, I'd say, May. And then I've seen the season extended to June and July, and there's more demand for Belize. But the overall projections for us for tourism over the next couple of years is a robust one, and we believe that 2022 is going to be a strong year, and then as we move into 2023, we should get back to some true normalcy and surpass what we were receiving in 2019.
Yeah. The first quarter of this year, you were seeing numbers that showed that you were above those projections, the original projections for this year. What is it like for this high season?
So we had, up until June, we had returned to about 75% of where we were pre-COVID, and now it would be the dead of the low season right now, and it's a height of the hurricane season for us as well. So we're seeing about 60 or 65%, which still isn't too bad with all the restrictions we have still in Belize.
This has been a continuous complaint we've heard from the sector itself. The fact that two things, the regulations that we have in place and the status that we have with COVID-19 being in the thick of a third wave. Is that something that you've been able to get more information on?
Well, more information from where?
From stakeholders.
Oh yes, we keep in constant dialogue. And our representative of the BTIA and DHA, our representatives are on the BTB's board, so we are in constant communication. In fact, I have a meeting with both BTIA and BHA tomorrow, different meetings with the boards, and we will have a discussion on the impacts of COVID and the restrictions and going forward into 2022 and beyond.
What's it like for you as minister when you sit in cabinet and these decisions are being made that you know are going to have a negative impact on tourism?
Well, this is a joke, right? I've found out a thing called ashwagandha, right? It reduces your stress level. So I've been relegated to taking a few of those before I go into cabinet. But I've just gotten back late last week from the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association conference in Panama, and so I met several ministers of tourism at that conference, and they're having the same difficulties all across. They trying to balance the health requirements and then trying to balance the opening up of the economy from a tourism standpoint. Now, a lot of other countries are moving away from all these strict restrictions. When I went to Panama, because I'm fully vaccinated, I didn't have to do a test. There's no curfew. There's a mask mandate, social distancing, physical distancing, yes. And I think that's where we need to head back to the basics, where we pound every day, wash your hands, physical distance, social distance, don't congregate in large numbers, and before you know it, this will be behind us. The reality is that this isn't going anywhere. The COVID-19 isn't going anywhere. It has to become endemic. And then, for example, the Spanish flu became the common flu. no matter what, in the United States and all across the world, the common flu kills a lot of people. Now, I don't want to be irresponsible.
Yes.
But we have to, things are tough here. If you move from 52% poverty to somewhere around 65%, a lot of people are underemployed. A lot of people are unemployed still. The tourism industry, the travel and tourism sector, is the only low-hanging fruit. If you put something into the ground and talk about from the farm to the table, it takes a while for that to grow and for you to export it. It's the same thing if you want to get into cattle. It's not to hit any of those industries, but we need a diversification, yes, of the economy. But tourism provides us with the only opportunity for us and real estate to bounce back quickly and to get some of the stresses that we have from an economical standpoint back in order.
I think the Prime Minister himself has said that diversification for him doesn't mean that there's a reduced level of interest or expectation of growth in tourism. It's having other alternatives as well.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're right, balancing the decisions between what is best for public health and what will actually attract people to want to come to Belize are two different things.
So if you want to be real, tell me how does a no movement Sunday work?
Well, they had two, and that was it.
Yeah, but still, when you're dealing with planning and moving forward, no movement Sundays, can I come to Belize and move around freely on a Sunday? I don't know. Maybe they change it again next week.
And so that's been a challenge. I know I've spoken to people in the sector that tourists call and ask. They do their research. They know that there are regulations, and then they can't be able to give them firm answers as to what to expect. Let's say in December, if that's when they want to come. They don't know if there'll be a curfew, if they're unvaccinated, they can go to a restaurant, or what they'll be allowed to do during that time.
So yes, and in Cabinet we discussed a tier system, and the Ministry of Health is going to implement that based on our lobbying, that we can't continue with the inconsistencies. We can't plan this way. It doesn't lend for any productivity or any forward thinking, and so hopefully soon that tier system will be launched.
And speaking of that forward thinking, we think of have you also or has the ministry also been looking at what sort of the level of investment might be in the tourism industry, if any, given the difficult circumstances?
What level of investment?
Well, I mean, if whether we're also seeing whether there's still people, if there's level of interest in terms of people.
Yes, and that's because I think the government has done a good job in creating an environment where people feel more comfortable. The rule of law, we've said that is we're going to uphold that. We're trying to work on the ease of doing business. And we're talking to a lot. So I heard you talking about the investment summit, which I think is going to be critical. But for us as well, we've been talking to a lot of developers across the world, and we believe strongly with the environment that we're creating as a government that we could attract some major developments for overnight as well as cruise.
As we mentioned the investment summit, we know that a large number of the potential investors who are coming are looking at tourism as potential investments. It really is a crucial time to kind of have a defined plan as to where we want our tourism product to go. How much has that been a part of the discussion at this phase where you're trying to attract investors?
Well, as you probably know, there's a thing called a Sustainable Tourism Master Plan, and there's a cruise policy. Actually, that cruise policy wasn't amended. I think the last time it was when I did it in probably 2006 or 7, something like that. And the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan is there, and then there's a tourism policy that is akin to the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan. We're in the process of updating and modernizing those documents, and so hopefully within the next few months we can put that out to the public for everybody to consume.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned the cruise tourism, I know there was, as you said, you just came back from a conference, but let's talk about the public debate that is ongoing of potentially adding 3 new ports to Belize as a destination.
Well, one, like I said, government is to create an enabling environment, but there's a lot of noise in the market, like they say, and nobody's checking the change, right? Or not enough. And so that's one of the issues that we discuss in Panama. The cruise lines want to know what's going on in Belize. And so I said, within short, we'll have all of it settled.
So
I believe that there, obviously there can't be 3 ports. Belize isn't on an itinerary by itself. Belize has to be on an itinerary with different countries.
Yeah.
And so the numbers won't grow for 3 ports to be successful.
Are there other ports? Are there other destinations that have multiple ports?
Roatan,
Yes.
Jamaica, Cozumel.
Yeah.
I think Barbados may have 2 ports.
So my question is, from a strictly tourism standpoint, what are the needs that need to be met?
For the cruise?
Yeah, for cruise.
One, well, they need a berthing facility where people can disembark. What that does is...
Directly onto mainland.
Yes. What that does is it creates, it gives the cruise lines more time. Belize is a tour destination, and they're profitable, very, very profitable in Belize as a result of the tours. So it gives them more time to do more tours. The tourists, the ones who don't go on tours and stay in the city or wherever the docking facility is, then tends to go on and off several times, and then they spend more like that. And then it gives you an opportunity for cruise lines to home port in your country, meaning that they overnight there and then they source goods and services in your country, which then adds another spin to the entire revenue generating capacity of the industry. So it is safe, especially in these times when an artista is blowing. It's not rough, and you're not open to or lawsuits. So there are a lot of things that you can raise the head tax because the infrastructure is better. So there's a lot of spin-off for having a docking facility. I just visited one in Panama as well. It's being built. It's going to be open probably in the next 2 or 3 months. Massive investment, but they're focusing on home porting as well.
And you know, when we speak about cruise tourism, a lot of the discussion tends to surround perhaps, let's say, the trade-off in that you do have benefits, but there's also some difficulties. And especially since we were talking earlier about COP26 and climate change, a lot of the issues is the environmental impact of both the cruise ships coming and the proposed port facilities.
But,
so how does...
there are a lot of, sorry to interrupt, but there's a lot of feelings and sentiments regarding cruise based on the history, right? Past. If you go to Harvest Key and you look at that facility there, you will see that you can develop in a sustainable way and sustain it over time. It was impressive what they've done out there in terms of managing their waste, managing their wastewater, managing everything, managing the numbers that come off the ship there. The same thing, I spoke to some of the executives of the cruise lines in Panama, and they're expecting to reduce their energy use by 30% in the next few years, and by 80% by 2050. So imagine these huge, and every year they're coming out bigger. So you have the Oasis class ships that can hold probably about 6,500 passengers, probably about 2,500 crew. So it's a small village floating out there and running on 80% less energy in a few years to come.
Now, I want to move, just if you'd allow us, because I know that cruise tourism and the conversations about the port has been very robust. But when you talk about the bread and butter for Belize, it's our overnight stays.
That's right.
That's where we are going to get the majority of our income from tourism. Developing new destinations in the country has been a conversation that's been ongoing for a long time. We know we have our staples. We have our San Pedro, or Kikaka, or Placencia, or Cayo, Hopkins has been up and coming. What's the plan in being able to move beyond just these main destinations?
Well, that's why we're updating the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan. What we want to do is fly in a helicopter that Britney Spears went on, and then look down on Belize, right? And say, this area is good for this type of investment. Yeah. This area is good for agriculture. This area is good for housing. And this area is good for maybe manufacturing companies. And we identify those areas. For example, we had an exciting discussion with a very, very serious gentleman with a new area down south, with a massive level of investment in a really, really sustainable way. That will include marinas, golf courses, condos, hotels, massive. And this is a serious play in the business all around Central America. And so that would open up a whole new era for Belize, if that gets through. And we're going to do everything possible for him to create, like I said, an environment where he can succeed in putting this business venture forward. But stuff like that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And are we also...
and you're right, the overnight sector generates 75% of the revenues for our country. And that's why our main focus was trying to rebuild back the overnight sector with partnering and talking to the airlines. So in the next couple of weeks, we have Alaska Airlines coming in on November 19th. From
big deal.
Huge for us. You show me which next administration has been able to attract 2 new airlines within 6 months. We go to
during a pandemic too.
During a pandemic,
where airlines are cutting back flights.
Yeah. So and if it was not for some of the internal issues, I believe we would be able to attract more airlines to Belize. So Alaska Airlines. Internal issues for the airlines. A lot of them ask some pilots to retire, some of their older staff, and you can't just find a pilot. That's why you see some of the airlines having major cancellations. Whether issues, they just don't have the personnel to manage all the flights that they're trying to come back, or trying to bring back. But the overnight sector is important. Alaska Airlines on November 19th from Seattle and from LA, and then on December 10th we'll have Frontier from Orlando, and then from Denver, which Denver is a big market for us. And we're looking at, strategically looking at how we can look at the low-hanging fruits in the United States and then expand from there. I have meetings with in a couple of weeks with all the major airlines in Mexico, and then we should have meetings with British Airways and Virgin in a couple of weeks too.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question about the focus or on bringing in tourists and also investors, I suppose, from different markets as well from around the world. The Latin American one is one that people have said we haven't really tapped into as much as we could have.
I agree.
Regional travel.
In fact,
even the Caribbean.
The strategies around this whole area. For example, we're right next to Mexico, and we get about 7,200 visitors overnight a year. You know, a lot of people go into the free zone from Jetamal and from the Quintana Roo area, but only 7,000 when you have Mexico has almost 100 million people, and they have a lot of them who have spending power. The other thing is that in Latin America we only get about, I'd say, 8,000 visitors for the year. We believe that if we position ourselves strategically, we would be able to attract more people. In fact, when I was at the tourist board the first time, the marketing experts from Latin America would say, well, people don't know Belize in Latin America. I'm 30 years later, they're saying the same thing. So something is off somewhere, right? Yeah. And so we have to.
We had some Brazilian tour guides in country, I think, doing seeing the scenes.
Yeah.
So that's, and it was always an idea, I know, when COPA was introduced, to be able to be that link to Latin America, but language will always be a barrier.
Well, why?
No, I'm asking.
For
Is language going to be a barrier?
why have we not become Latinized over the last 30 years?
Well, it depends.
No, yes, we have. I think people who speak Spanish now make up 55% of the population. So I don't think language is a barrier. We have enough people who are able to speak Spanish here in Belize, and a lot of the travelers who come to Belize can speak English as well.
Yeah.
And then you have Google Translate, right?
And apps that can handle that too.
Yeah.
Let's shift focus for the final 10 minutes that we have. I want to talk about the tour that you did with the Diaspora. It was a team of ministers and other representatives, but of course you have the responsibility of diaspora relations. What's the plan here now that you've had this first engagement?
Well, no, we want to. I'm going to submit a paper to cabinet on this coming Tuesday, and we want to have a discussion on some of the initiatives that we want to seriously look at, and then have a fruitful discussion on how we move forward. In the diaspora, they talk about having people be able to vote. Now, I feel a little bit differently about that. Some of my colleagues have their own views, so that's one of the things we have. How do we address second generation and third generation Belizeans living abroad? Should they get a passport just by applying? What is the process there? Should we have somebody in the Senate representing the diaspora? I don't know. A lot of discussions. Yeah, so there are a lot of things.
If you had to categorize, what were the top 3 concerns?
I hate to say this, but crime in Belize. They're worried for Belize. One, land issues, immigration issues, banking issues, and because they want to, a lot of them want to now come back home. They've been there 30 and 40 and 50 years.
They're moving into retirement.
Yeah, they're moving into retirement age, and they've done well for themselves, and they want to come back home, especially from the colder climates. They want to, like we said, ease their mind, no?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the big things. How do they come and feel invited to invest? And some of them just want to simply come home. How do they get a piece of land? The minister responsible for lands said that he's going to open a diaspora desk in the ministry, and then he will be prepared to do a tour as well, just like he's doing around Belize to sort out all the land issues for these people.
You mentioned that crime is one of their main concerns. Are you also getting a feedback from those who you saw that they want to help to contribute towards solving the problem?
Yes. From an issue, all the social issues, and they want to come back. A lot of them are very skilled people, highly trained professionals, and they can come back and truly help to rebuild or build this economy back.
Now, we also have an ambassador for diaspora relations. This is new for from what we've seen in the past. What do you expect to be her responsibilities, and how will things be different for the Belizean diaspora now?
Well, her role is to drive the process forward for the entire diaspora unit, and also to continue to create those engagements and connections with people all across the world. Remember, there are not only people who
or in the U.S.
Or not only in the U.S., but they don't have relatives. Then they don't have a connection to Belize by birth.
Yeah.
So people who have Belizean passport, who are all across this country. Actually, she told me she found some Belizean some individual who has a Belizean passport who is worth about $26 billion US. So we can reach out to those individuals to say, are you thinking about investing in our country? We might need this area, that area. So her role is to drive the whole process forward, and to show that this is just not lip service, but we want to deliver on what we say we're going to deliver. We want to build on what we started a month or so ago in the United States when we did that tour, and we wanted to go from there. So in January we will continue with, I believe we'll be in Tampa, and then we'll be in Los Angeles, which has the biggest population of Belizeans living out there. Some say it's almost 150, 200,000 Belizeans living in California.
Just in California?
In the state.
Well, I was going to ask that question next. We've always made different guesses as to the size of the diaspora, just in the United States, because there are in other parts of the world as well. We know because they keep on tuning in. But we don't have that type of measure. Are we going to quantify the size of the diaspora?
We're going to try. So we're working on an online registry, and we're asking people to sign up if they're interested. It will come with certain benefits that we're trying to work on with the tourism industry, whereby they get a card and they have some discounts when they come to Belize, that type of thing. And also we want to, every 3,000 or so person who registers would go into a raffle to win a land here in Belize, that type of thing. Try to have it as attractive as possible. But there are still a lot of people who live all around the world who are not, have not been regularized in the system that they live in, and so I don't expect them to register, right? So there's still going to be a shortfall.
Yes.
And going back to a little bit of what we were talking about earlier, in the context, we spoke about it in the context of Latin America. You know, people saying that they don't know where, they don't know Belize in general, they don't know where it is. Going back to tourism, what's sort of the plan talking about marketing, you know, in those newer spaces that, or those new markets that we haven't traditionally reached out to?
Well, we believe that digital gives us an opportunity to do great things. We just have to be creative with it. I come out of that world a little bit coming from telecoms, and so I understand and appreciate the use of technology. I think that it provides for a level playing field as much as possible. The bigger countries with their bigger budgets, for example, Costa Rica has about $50 million alone for marketing. We don't have anything close to that for our entire budget. But we can do creative things. Like I've asked for them, why don't we partner with Red Bull and have someone free dive the blue hole, right? Just that type of thing. That's the type of thing that attracts people. We have certain plans within the BTB that we're looking at right now. I find them truly, truly exciting, and that will create a buzz in the international arena. But we have to create specific campaigns. So I've asked them to like reverse engineer the whole process. You have direct flights from certain cities in the United States and certain parts of the world. And then what are the connecting cities or countries that these people are, where the main ones are coming. And then we look at the numbers seriously. It has to be data driven. And then we go after them specifically with specific campaigns in those areas.
And speaking of buzz, we did have quite a popular pop star in country last week who did not leave us a rave review. I want to hear your perspective as Minister of Tourism.
Well, like a gentleman, Mr. James Prince posted, I don't get too caught up in that. Maybe, I mean, she's saying Belize, so that can work. The elevator doesn't go all the way up to the top, right? So that's all I'll say about that.
And, you know, this is a key, I think, a key part in what we are seeing with celebrities who may be able to come. Many have attributed Honorable Shine Burroughs' travels around the United States as a potential opening for more exposure for Belize. Have you collaborated with him to talk about how to market?
We've sat down and we've spoken in length. No, in this day and age, the social media influencers play a crucial role, yes. But in terms of sustainability for us, we have to keep with our plan. We have a plan on the table, and as long as we hold true to it, we believe that we're going to be successful with the things that we're doing. I don't think if you look on the planes coming to Belize, you will see celebrities, right?
Well, my question is, who has the spending power? I mean, what's the target population? We've had a lot of families and older couples be a big part of our demographic.
Yeah, it depends on the time of year as well.
Yeah.
And so in the high season, you would have people anywhere between the ages of 30 and 55 for the most part coming. And then during the the slower season, you would have your educational and your religious groups. And so just depending on the time of year, there are different demographics coming here, but we're not the Cancun type destination. And so we offer a unique, immersive kind of experience here in the country. We have the largest living barrier reef in the world that the Prime Minister is talking about in Glasgow. We have 3 of the 4 atolls in the Caribbean. We have the most extensive cave system in Central America, this part. We have a diverse people. And show me another destination that has the level of diversity for the size of this country. And so we have great wonders. We have the history of the Mayans, the Garifuna. And so we believe that we're an hour and a half from Miami, maybe 2 hours from Houston. So we're strategically located, and we offer what people want. No, they want a life-fulfilling experience when they travel. They want to learn something. They want to experience something that they can remember for years to come. And so we believe that our beautiful 8,867 square miles offers that.
And we still have to get through the pandemic time. So my final question is just, are you going to push? We heard from the Belize Hotel Association. They're very concerned about only vaccinated persons being allowed to go to restaurants. They've also spoken about the impact of curfews. I know that you can't, we don't have zones. We don't have hotel zones that you could say just the hotels. What's your plan in being able to kind of get to the right balance for this?
Well, like I said, first of all, we have to get control of this wave. I think, to be honest, that and I'm no expert, so I have to be careful how I say these things. But I think before it's all behind us, we're going to have a couple more waves. And so we have to be prepared as a country for that. But, and I'll be critical of our collective decision, how do you say, ma'am, sir, you're welcome to come to Belize. You don't have to be vaccinated. You can go to church now, but you can't eat in a restaurant. You have to grab your food at a window and take it to your hotel room. Now, that's bordering on asinine, I think, and I'll be critical of that. It makes absolute no sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense to the industry. There's a huge difference between being open up until, say, for example, 11 o'clock at night, and having to shut down your business by 7:30, 8, so that your staff can clean up and get home. We have been at this thing for almost a year and 9 months, 10 months now. We've learned a lot during that time, and I think if other destinations can do it safely, we can. In fact, I just saw a report that Florida is now one of the safest big states in the United States, and everybody was criticizing them for being reckless and all of that. No, we don't have the infrastructure, the health infrastructure, and we don't have all the doctors. And I'm glad to hear that my good friend Cecilia Eck is doing a lot better. So we don't have a lot of doctors in this country, a lot of nurses that we can afford to put pressure on them anymore. I know they've worked tirelessly over the last 18 months or so, and we commend them for that and we applaud them for that. But you have, like I've said in cabinet, at least we have a vaccination for COVID. We don't have a vaccination for starvation and the level of poverty we're seeing in this country. And actually, I was in a meeting with several ministers yesterday to talk about crime and social issues as a result, and crime being as a result of some of those social issues. And one of the field workers was saying that he hasn't seen that level of hunger for all his years of work, and I know it. I see it every single day as a representative for a poor constituency for the most part. So we have to truly implement the safety measures that will work, yes, but we have to understand that this thing isn't going anywhere, and we have to continue to learn to live with it. If all the countries around us are opening up going into 2022, then why can't we do the same in a safe way?
Well, I think I think that's probably, well, we're just about out of time, and I think that's a good, if not somewhat positive, somewhat sobering note to end on.
No, I try to keep it real all the time.
You know that.
And I don't mince words, but the tourism industry, and if you want to throw in diaspora, the tourism industry is probably closer to 1.5 billion Belize dollars in terms of economic productivity, and diaspora is trending towards $300 million in terms of remittances. And so the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations, we take our responsibility very, very seriously. We have very serious people at the helm, and they're working tirelessly to try to rebuild back, and the industry help to rebuild back the economy, so that people can get back to work, people can get back to making a decent living, and the inconsistencies of how we address the COVID situation and it cannot continue. And I'm speaking on behalf of the thousands and thousands of people. When they say go out and get vaccinated, the tourism industry was the first to reach 100%,
Yes,
or closest to the 100%. So we understand the ramifications of COVID, and we understand what we need to do, and we're taking responsibility. So now give us an opportunity to thrive, give us an opportunity to tap into what we believe is the pent-up demand, the revenge travel, whatever you want to call it. We really need to give us an opportunity to survive at this time. There are a lot of businesses on the brink at this time.
Okay.
Well, Minister, thanks for joining us this morning. That was definitely a good conversation. Talked about a range of things. We definitely appreciate it and wish you the best.
And thanks for having me, and I look forward to working with you guys continuously. This year is going to be what, 30 years or something?
We are approaching our 30th anniversary. That's right. So
I'll do a plug for you. I was asked.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break now. When we come back, shift focus to Belize's Investment Summit. Please stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.